Hello and welcome to Chapter 4, Building and Energizing the Need for Change. So in Chapter 4, we're going to talk about the overview up here, why we change, right? And then which a framework for addressing the need for change, the readiness for change, the awareness of those for change. And we'll talk a lot about the vision and the vision statement. So in the framework of our book, now we're at awakening, right? We're going to wake up those as the need for change, identify the need for change, and articulate the gap between current and future desired states. That's what it's really about, is telling people where we are now, where it is we want to get to, and how to get there. So recognize the need for change isn't enough, right? We got to talk about why change is important. We're going to have to expend resources to get there. So it's not going to happen by accident. We got to be purposeful in our means of attacking this. And to do that, we need a compelling vision of where we want to go, what we want to change to. Right? So we got to look at things like, to develop our need for change, we got to seek out and make sense of external data. Like that's usually what's driving change, is something external. So we got to go after that and understand it, not just know it, but understand it. And make sense of the perspectives of other stakeholders. So how, not just me, but how does everybody else feel about this or think about it? Seek out and make sense of the internal data, then what's going on inside our organization, and then assess your personal concerns and perspectives about this whole thing. All right, so to look at the organization, see if it's ready for change, right, we got to look at the gap between current and desired state. So we got to see if people believe that the proposed change is the right change, right? And they also have to think they can do it, right? If they think they can't do it, then they won't even try. Right? And then we got to answer. Everybody's got this question of what's in it for me, so we got to be able to answer that question, that's for sure. All right, we are... Let me jump on the right page. So a second look of readiness here, right? We got to ask ourselves, are the leadership viewed as trustworthy and followers? Do we have champions of change? Is middle management involved? These are some of the things we need to think about. We don't really have to check for an innovative culture, other than the fact that if we don't have one, then we got to deal with that. Do we have an accountable culture? If not, we got to deal with that. All right, so let's take a look at creating a need for change. Often it's a crisis. If there's not a crisis, sometimes we create a crisis on purpose. We create a big deal about something to get people paying attention. You got to develop a transformational vision. Kotter talked about that, the Harvard guy, in his 8 rules for organizational change, right? So where are we going to? How is this different? Find a transformational leader is going to help get us there. We'll talk more about that later. Focus on the shared goals. How is this an advantage for everybody? How does everybody win out of this? And dissatisfaction of the status quo. We can't stay where we are. We got to do what Kotter called create the burning platform, or a sense of urgency, right? Got to have this sense of urgency. This is not okay. Where we are now is not going to work. We've got to do something about this. Right, so things that are barriers to change, and you'll certainly be running into these in terms of organizational change. People have these mental models of how they see things, and that's the way it's always supposed to be. It worked the way in the past, right? It was successful in the past. It must be okay now. So it worked in the past. So we think it's going to work now, even though things have changed. What were before culture and values are now dogma. So they've really hardened and oscillized, and there's not much we can, it's going to be very difficult to change them. Leadership practice may impede recognition of the need for change. So we may have leaders doing things to make the present look good at the sacrifice of the future. The last one is existing relationships can become shackles that impede the ability to respond to change. So we just get too cemented in the way we are. It's the frozen, unfrozen thing all over again. Certainly groupthink is a thing that happens in organizations that is dangerous, and groupthink is where the group thinks collectively we're a bunch of smart people. We probably will always get the right answer. So no matter what the answer is, it seems like with groupthink, they think it's the right answer. So this is how literally a group of rocket scientists got together, and they decided that even though the Space Shuttle Columbia was designed to be flown at warmer than 32 degrees, it would be okay to fly it, to take off at 32 degrees, even though the seals in the solid rocket boosters were probably frozen, and which means they don't work anymore. And the rest is history, tragic history, where the gas did leak out around the frozen seals. It went right into the flame of the rocket, went right into the main fuel tank of the belly tank on the space shuttle, and they just blew it all over the sky at thousands of feet in the air, where 7 people were killed. And that was clearly an example of groupthink where a bunch of rocket scientists said, we can't be wrong. There's so many smart guys in this room. How can we make a mistake on this? When in fact, those frozen O-rings didn't care. They didn't care, and that smart people said they should work, as the physics said they didn't work, and then they didn't work, and 7 people were killed on national TV because of that. So we need to be careful about making assumptions just because we have people who've made good decisions before all in the room thinking the same thing. That's no guarantee. The dynamic of a groupthink is that people get it in their heads it's more important to agree with the group and be seen as a team player than it is to stand up for what you think might be an issue and be the person who has the guts to say the emperor has no clothes. So if we're talking about terms of making a change, it'd be nice, and what we're changing to, it'd be nice to have a vision statement, right? So a vision statement is different than a mission statement. A mission statement is who we are, who our customers are, what we're all about. A vision statement is future oriented. Where do we want to go? So mission statement for the present, vision statement for the future, right? Our organizational dreams is one way to put it. All right. A vision statement should have an emotional appeal, right, with which people can identify. It should be something to get people excited for. What's this organization going to do and look like in the future, right? And some people think that a vision without task is a dream world, but a task without vision is just drudgery. So remember, we're not just chipping away at stones to fit into a wall. We're making a cathedral, right, like we talked about in the first chapter. Right, so some things a good vision statement should have: clear, concise, easily understandable, memorable, not memorial, memorable, right? And that means short, right? I've seen vision statements that are 3 paragraphs long. I gotta believe nobody could know what's in there, probably not even the people who wrote it and signed off on it. It should be exciting and inspiring, challenging, right? That's what JFK said when he was president, right? We choose to go to the moon not because it is easy, but because it is hard, right? And that was a great vision statement about we're gonna grab the high ground and beat the Russians to it and all that. It got everybody very much excited about that back in the early 60s. And so why is it necessary to have a vision? Because it enhances performance measures. People start paying attention. It promotes change. And certainly a big thing is it motivates individuals and to start doing things, and it motivates them what to change, right? So establishes a context for decision making. Here's where we want to go. Here's what we're about. Here's how we want to do this. So we can get them to start moving out on it, right? So all right, so we just had that. So things that what's good about a vision statement that's useful, right? So a mission statement, I just talked about this. What business are we in? What are our fundamental values? Also maybe who our clients are. Strategy, how do we achieve our mission? And that's certainly fine, right? And the culture is sort of the bounds of what we work in, right? The system in which we work. Why do visions fail? This is interesting, right? So senior management doesn't walk the walk, right? Do as I say, not as I do. That's certainly a good reason for it to fail. Sometimes it ignores the needs of those who put it into practice, so we don't give them any resources to do this new thing. Or unrealistic expectations. The people who have to make it happen realize it is impossible. It's just not going to happen. Therefore, they don't try. And it's kind of like the next one where it lacks grounding in reality of the present, right? Either we think it's the wrong thing to do or we think we don't have the resources to do it. Maybe it's too abstract. We can't, I don't know what you mean. It's just too fuzzy. I don't know what's going on there. Or sometimes there's too much complacency. There's just no sense of urgency. Yeah, we'll get to it. We just don't think it's a big deal. So it doesn't get enough effort. It's like that term paper for college that you got to partially finish and it's just hanging out there and you just don't get it done at the end. Right? So what we got to watch out for is vision creep. And we use this term in project management all the time where we talk about scope creep. We keep adding to the things we need to do. What happens is well-intentioned people, they're not trying to wreck your project, but they have an idea. And they want to tell you this idea and they think you should install this on top of your ideas, and everybody adds to a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And what happens eventually is you don't have enough time and effort to get everything done, and then the whole thing fails. So you need to be very careful about that and not add extra things into the work. So in this slide we talk about a good approach, right, to vision crafting remains the same as change vision and organizational vision are very much related, I guess what we're saying here, right? The change vision just focuses on the change to the organization. Here's an example of one. The Survive to 5 program, we believe all children should live to celebrate their 5th birthday, right? And it talks about reducing child mortality and so forth, right? Certainly a vision for the future that people can certainly get behind. A little more manufacturing oriented, right? Here's the nano car, right, out of India, where they basically take this, they call these tuk-tuks, right? They're like scooters with bodies on them, right? And they turn it into a car. The idea is to have a $2,000 car that gets 50 miles to the gallon and seats 5, right? They actually looked at importing these in the U.S., but they weren't even close in terms of things like safety standards, anti-lock brakes, airbags, all those kind of things. Not even close. But in India, right, it's a big improvement. Some things you might think about in your organizational analysis in Chapter 4 here, we talk about things like considering things for organizational change, sort of a checklist here. Have you made sense of external data? Have you talked to your stakeholders and so forth? Writing a vision statement, some things to think about. These things should be in your writing, in your vision statement. Is it clear? Is it interesting? Is it so, right, so forth. More things to think about. Does it promote change? Right? Does it engage? Does it promote commitment? Right, so after you write your vision statement, it's kind of a pretty good checklist to go back and check it against. Is there consistency between words and action of senior management and vision? So are they behind you? Are they likely to back you up? Right. So think about an organization in need of change, right? There's a gap between the present state and the future state. That's why we want to change, right? So how strong is this need for change, and what is this need that's going to get us across the gap? Right, so sort of the motivator, because that gives us access to resources. Right, and if the change does not occur, what will be the impact? So what are the consequences of not being successful? Right, so we can we can all use these things to help get us resources, to help get us motivated people to help make the change. Right, so here's sort of a checklist we think about running through to check the readiness for change. Remember, it does no good to launch a change in an organization that's not ready for it. We talked about Kotter's sense of urgency for the change, and that being the #1 reason organizational change fail. So we're kind of going quickly over the organizational change part here, or the readiness, but readiness is absolutely vital. Otherwise, everything else you do just falls on deaf ears, right? It's just not happening. So you need to be careful about that and make sure the organization is ready for the change you're gonna implement. If individuals believe that the benefits outweigh the cost, do they also believe the probability of success is enough, right? So they got to think it's worth the effort and there's a good chance of success. So in summary here, right, we looked for that an understanding of the need for change, and the vision comes in when we start showing them what we're going to change to. Change leaders need to address the question of why change and develop a sound rationale for it, right? And then a compelling vision of what we're going to change to. They can't just walk out and start talking about change. That's what happens all the time. And the people are like, why would I even bother with that? I don't know what you're talking about. What you need to do then is spend a lot of time getting the people ready for the change. Right? And when you develop this rationale, you need to do your homework. You need to do a careful assessment of those things around you, the motives, the interest, and everything else, so you get those people ready for change. So this concludes Chapter 4. Thanks for listening.